evening to you. Welcome to KTN Prime on this Tuesday. It's the 6th day of December 2016. We're glad you could join us tonight wherever it is you're watching us from. My name is Sofia Wanuna. Our sign language interpreter tonight is William Sila, and we have a lot in store for you, including the coverage of that health crisis. And on 47 days of accountability, tonight we focus on Nakuru County. Let's now have a look at our top stories.
We are looking at where we can get some doctors to be able, like Nairobi, to deploy to some of the hospitals within Nairobi to be able to support where there are gaps.
Health in crisis. Talks about after doctors' representatives walk out on government team.
Kwa sababu tumeambiwa tuchukue wagonjwa wote tuwapeleke hospitalini au tuwapeleke nyumbani.
The pain and death of patients continue as doctors dig in.
The team ambayo tunaingia nayo kwa kiwanja sio team ile ya nini? Sio team ile ya Division 2. Bana,
tunasema tunataka muungano maalum. Muungano maalum.
It's now official. CORD and Amani in Super Alliance to arrest Jubilee in next year's election.
We have managed to recover all the firearms as of now. This is the environment where the firearms have been recovered.
And after alleged torture and terror, Mumias heaves sigh of relief as guns are recovered. So on this 6th day of December, the health workers' strike here in Kenya has entered day 2. And here's briefly what we can tell you that we have gathered so far. Doctors walked out earlier today on a meeting with officials from the Ministry of Health. The talks were being held at Afya House. At least 3 patients have died at the Coast General Hospital, and nurses have vowed to continue with the strike. Earlier on, we heard from the Minister, that's Cabinet Secretary Health, Cleopa Mailu, saying meetings to continue late into the night as today they were unable to reach a deal. So day 2, we're seeing deaths being reported and still yet to see who will be the first to blink between the government officials and the health workers. So the Cabinet Secretary, as I mentioned there, Cleopa Mailu, has informed the Kenyan nation that, in fact, the strike could not be resolved today because the process of seeking consensus will take a while. This came as doctors' representatives walked out of those talks, as I mentioned there, earlier on in the evening, and the government promised that the meetings will continue late into the night. I apologize, that soundbite from the Health Minister, Cleopa Mailu, will be coming to us a little bit later. But let's proceed to Mombasa, where 146 patients and some 30 newborns are still in wards at the Coast Provincial General Hospital with no one to attend to them. As Francis Otomwa now tells us, 3 people died earlier today as hundreds were turned away at that facility.
Coast Provincial General Hospital. This old man has been here for several hours and just been pleading with medics to attend to his skin. He's turned down. His patient is clearly in pain. He has no one to assist him and therefore has to carry the burden alone. Images that are slowly becoming common at public health facilities across the country. Coast General Hospital serves 6 counties, and when things grind to a halt here, the entire circuit breaks.
Watu ngozi mingi sana analala hospitali, ni mgonjwa, hakuna mtu unasaidia, hakuna mtu unabatia dawa. Ni mzuri serikali naomba bolobole na elewana.
Sasa hivi na sindano za kudungwa na sina mtu wa kunidunga.
3 patients were reported dead earlier in the day, cases that are slowly connected with the raging strike. A 28-year-old lady died moments after our arrival. She was just recovering from meningitis. Before the strike, the family feels things took the wrong turn for lack of proper attention.
So alikuwa yuendelea vizuri, lakini vile mgomo ulianza madaktari wakawa hawamhudumii, hakuna dawa tumeandikiwa, ikawa hali yake imeanza kubadilika na ikawa mbaya.
Ni utovu wa kuhudumiwa ambayo imefika kikomo, na ndio sasa tumemwaga.
Senior medics are not on site, just students from the Kenya Medical Training College, and not even emergency cases are accorded attention. Some 146 patients are still in the wards, over 30 newborns still here. Even so, medics still cling on to the strike regardless. The pay hike fast.
There is no time we'll go back to work without a signed collective bargaining agreement. It's the only tool that will allow us to go back to the hospitals and offer our services as nurses.
Medics are reading malice from the negotiation table. They feel the state is not duly sincere in its submissions. They claim the state wants to muzzle their voices. They'll settle for nothing less than the state commit to sign the 2013 collective bargaining agreement. They affirm. Counties too are reeling, caught in between the crossfire. They want a speedy resolution to the standoff.
The government of Kenya has a lot of money. In fact, it is tabulated as that they waste 240 billion in corruption, cartels only. 240 billion. There's a lot of money to pay everyone what they deserve.
But it's an event that's now affecting the entire services within the county. So we really beseech our doctors to really resume services, because here life is at stake.
In only a matter of hours, and the situation is getting worse here at Coast's largest facility, CPGH. Observers project that things may actually get out of hand in the next couple of days should things remain the same. Francis Ontomoa, KTN News, at the Coast General Hospital, Mombasa.
All right, let's revisit our top story tonight. And the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Dr. Cleopa Mailu, has informed the Kenyan nation that the health workers' strike could not be resolved today because the process of seeking consensus will take a while. This came as doctor representatives walked out of the talks that they had late evening, even as the government promised that meetings will continue.
I want to say the discussions are progressing. However, it's unfortunate we have not reached a point where we can say we have concluded our discussion to a point where we can say reprieve can be found to Kenyans who are suffering.
The words from the men at the heart of the attempts to hammer out a deal with the health workers, perhaps not what Kenyans had been hoping for on the second day of a painful and dire situation in Kenya's hospitals.
Some of those issues can easily be solved.
All eyes are now on Afya House, almost 1 month after doctors gave the warning that they would down their tools to press for the implementation of the collective bargaining agreement. Around the country, chaos in the health sector. From Mombasa, Nyeri, Baringo, Kisumu to Makueni. Tales of pain, anguish and hopelessness as the doctors and nurses strike entered the second day. Patients in dire need of medical attention, others deserted in hospitals and forced to go home or seek help in private hospitals.
Biwa tuchukue wagonjwa wote, tuwapeleke hospitalini au tuwapeleke nyumbani.
In Eldoret, the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital's renal unit providing some ray of hope for patients undergoing dialysis, some traveling from as far as Narok and Kakamega.
Nimetoka Kakamega County. Nimekuja kufanya dialysis huku kwa sababu Kakamega hospitali imefungwa, hakuna madaktari.
In Busia, doctors took to the streets as their union officials sought a solution at Afya House. Sources tell KTN that State House sent 2 top officials to Afya House. But just like the Monday talks, there was no consensus.
When we talk about negotiation, we are not talking about renegotiating a document that was already signed and agreed upon. We are talking about how it will be implemented and how and when we get the arrears that are owed to us for the last 3 years.
The CBA for a 300% pay increase was signed in June 2013. With no way forward from Afya House, the doctors are standing their ground.
Doctors will remain on strike until such a day, until such a time that the collective bargaining agreement that we signed with the government of Kenya on the 27th of June 2013, and that was effective on the 1st of July 2013, is fully implemented and is paid in arrears of 3 years.
The doctors' strike, just one headache for the government. Nurses too have their demands for harmonization of salaries.
We are telling our members that consultations are here to take over. They should pull up their socks, tighten their belts. Even if it is going to take us 100 years on the streets, we will be on the streets until the government does one thing: sign a harmonized collective bargaining agreement, period.
With doctors and nurses vying to stay away from hospitals for as long as it takes, the crisis in public hospitals is only bound to get worse. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
All right, and we'll continue with our coverage of the crisis in healthcare. We'll be talking later on to a former CEO of the Kenya Medical Association. She's also a medical doctor. That's Dr. Elizabeth Wala. She's standing by for that interview. Stay with us. She'll be joining us later on right here on KTN Prime. Right, we're also engaging with you tonight on our Big Q on this story and asking you, if you are in a room with the striking doctors, what is it you'd ask them? If you found yourself in a room with one or several of the doctors that are currently on strike and nurses, what would you ask them? Tweet us at KTN News, at KTN Prime, at Sofia Wanuna, or you can send in a message at 22155. And we'd love to hear your views tonight, and I'll sample some of them. In other news, CORD leader Raila Odinga and Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi have declared that they are planning to form a united front to face Jubilee in next year's election. The two say they are working to have a proper foundation for the Super Alliance. Here is Linda Ogutu reporting on the newfound alliance and what it portends for the opposition.
After almost 2 months of speculation as to who exactly would be in the much-touted opposition National Super Alliance, the CORD leader has finally indicated he's in, ready to join forces with the Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi.
Hii inaumbwa vizuri mpaka iumbike. Ile timu ambayo tutaingia nayo kwa kiwanja sio timu ile ya nini, sio timu ile ya Division 2. Hapana,
sisi hatusemi hatutaki ODM, sisi hatutemi hatutaki Wiper, sisi hatusemi hatutaki Ford Kenya, sisi hatusemi hatutaki CORD. Hapana, tunasema tunataka muungano maalum.
The two leaders, who addressed 2 rallies in Laikipia North constituency, now say they are holding consultations and will have what they called a formidable super alliance by February next year to face President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto.
Tukitengana, mimi niende kivyangu, Raila aende kivyake, hawa jamaa watapenya na watakuwa na nafasi ile rais ya kuiba kura.
The two friends turned foe turned friends will be hoping that this time round they will be lucky after a similar alliance failed to materialize prior to the 2013 general election.
Latina walisema inaitwa Irare Humanum Est. Irare Humanum Est. Hiyo maana yake ni to err it's human. Kufanya makosa ni kibinadamu, lakini ushenzi ni kurudia makosa.
The probable formation of a super alliance will throw the current structural organization in CORD into further disarray, with the question of who will be the party's flag bearer in the next presidential election remaining unanswered. Musalia's entry may complicate the equation that many say may be the undoing of CORD since time is running out.
State House, Raila Amolo Odinga wakijipanga na wenzake Musalia, Weta, Kalonzo, State House ni yetu.
Jubilee leaders have been courting leaders from Western region to join the coalition ahead of the 2017 general election, after some of them openly indicated they were ready to work with the Jubilee government. The inclusion of Musalia Mudavadi may be a formula by CORD to consolidate the Western vote come 2017. Linda Ogutu, KTN News.
The Registrar of Political Parties, Lucy Ndongo, has now written to 7 ODM rebel MPs, an ODM governor and a deputy governor, informing them that they will be deregistered and will lose their seats within 7 days. Duncan Hayamba tells us why.
Hereby resolves to uphold its decision of the 31st October 2016 that the following members be forthwith expelled from the party. As many are of this opinion, say aye.
Aye. It is that resolution by ODM party that might see rebel members kicked out of parliament or out of the executive county offices 8 months to August 2017 general election if all factors remain constant. The Registrar of Political Parties, Lucy Ndungu, has confirmed having received the very communication from ODM asking her to expel the members. However, Ndungu says she has notified the affected members first, as per prior ruling by the political parties dispute tribunal after noticing the party had not notified the members. In her communication, she has informed the affected members they will be deregistered within 7 days. Then she will notify IEBC, which will now be under obligation to communicate to the clerks of the houses concerned to declare the seats vacant. The 7 rebels who have since ditched ODM for Jubilee Party are Kwale Governor Salim Mvurya, Kisii Deputy Governor Joash Maangi, Kwale Woman Representative Zainab Shizuga, who is already been named in the Jubilee's Coast Region campaign team. Others include Mathare Member of Parliament Stephen Kariuki, nominated MP Isaac Mwaura, Samuel Aram of Nakuru Town West, and Major retired John Waluke of Sirisia. Also facing the political gallows is Firebrand Budalangi Member of Parliament Ababu Namamba, who is now party leader of Labour Party of Kenya. In his response, youthful Mathare legislator Stephen Kariuki, who came to Parliament through a by-election, says, and I quote, "I'm ready for by-election. No apologies." Duncan Hemba, KTN.
President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto have said the Jubilee administration will not sideline any region initiating projects regardless of whether they voted for them or not in the last general elections. Now, the leaders who kicked off their 2-day tour of the Lower Eastern region stated that the Jubilee regime will use an all-inclusive approach to development in its determination to ensure no part of the country is marginalized. The president was crowned as a Kamba elder in Kibwezi, Makueni County.
Kwenye upinde ameweka vizuri, usiogope atatupa.
We must be together. We must pull together. And we must abandon those politics za zamani. We must abandon those politics and talk politics of unity, talk politics of development, talk politics of progress. That is the way Kenya can move forward.
Maendeleo ilikwama wakati kila mtu anataka kuwa ndio mwenye kufaidika na umaarufu wa jambo fulani. That is not our interest. Kama tungekuwa tunafuata umaarufu, hatungekuwa hapa, kwa sababu hatukupigiwa kura hapa. Lakini sisi tumekuja hapa kwa sababu serikali Uhuru Kenyatta anaendesha ni serikali ya Kenya.
Baringo Senator Gideon Moi has dismissed claims by a section of leaders from Rift Valley that he is dividing the Kalenjin community. Gideon Moi, who was speaking in Kabarnet during a funds drive for border operators, told his Jubilee counterparts that he has been the #1 crusader for unity. The county chairman also asked the government to pay the loans of farmers in Rift Valley O Kenya Farmers Association the same way he did with cotton farmers in central Kenya.
Katikati ya Kenya. Nini iko katikati ya Kenya? Mwenyezi Mungu anabarikiwa. Wacha niseme kwa ufupi.
Niombe serikali, wakati rais alikuwa Central Province, alisaidia wananchi kwa kutoa deni ile ya kahawa 4 billion. Ningependa rais tafadhali uone hata watu wetu pande hii wale wako na loans kwa AFC na Kapamba, tafadhali one hata hawa huruma, hata hiyo tutoe tafadhali. Hiyo tunauliza kwa unyenyekevu.
Kama wewe unataka kiti, kama ni kiti ya mbunge, kama kiti ya governor, kama ni kiti ya president, ongelesha sisi my friend. Ongelesha sisi vizuri sana. Bwana piga sisi, bwana tusi sisi. Kenya hii belongs to all of us and we must live together. We must allow everybody. Kama ni nani anaomba kiti, we must allow. Campaign ya 2017, my friend, I warn you. This is going to be the best campaign you've ever seen ever. KANU is going to be very much present in all elective positions in this country. Na kama chama ilianza taifa ya Kenya, hao wote hata rais ya Jamhuri ya Kenya alikuwa chairman ya KANU. Deputy President, Secretary General ya KANU. Sasa mimi nataka kuuliza nyinyi wangwana wa Kabarnet. Yaani mtu akizaa watoto yake, mwingine anaoa, mwingine anapata watoto, wakifika huko wanasema baba si baba.
Right, 47 of accountability is our special coverage here on KTN News, putting that spotlight on some of the queries raised by the Auditor General report in as far as the financial year 2014-2015 is concerned. So today our focus is on Nakuru County, the audit queries raised there. And one of them is on loan repayment, and this is for car loans that the 75 MCAs in that county got. So each of them got 2 million, which totaled 150 million shillings. And for each of these car loans, the repayments were not guaranteed because they were not pegged on salaries. That is something each of these MCAs will get at the end of the month. However, they were pegged on their allowances. So that was a discrepancy. And then there was also a question in as far as 15%, but this going to a huge budget that they had put aside on travel. Assembly budget spent on travel. In some cases, there was no accountability that was seen in as far as bringing back receipts and vouchers to show how that money was spent. So a huge portion of that budget going to travel. And also the Auditor General report finding that some of the foreign trips were valueless, saying that they were indicated as trips to go learn for training. However, they turned out largely to be sightseeing, some of them in the USA, Japan, India and Singapore as well. Another issue that has been highlighted there in the Auditor General's report 2014-2015, road projects. So 1.04 billion shillings had been approved for roads, repairage and all that to continue in that particular county. However, only 473 million shillings was utilized. That means over $500 million shillings did not go to the intended use. And so Nakuru County, of course, yet to respond to these queries. But just some of the issues that have been raised by the Auditor General's report. And of course, this is what I talked about there earlier, 15% in as far as their budget on domestic and foreign travel. So just some of the questions that have been raised. If we have one more, yes, we have another board. This is early childhood development, a project to build classrooms for them that flopped. How did that happen? 8.5 million shillings is a tender that was awarded to a company to build 21 classrooms. However, that project stalled, and since then, new tenders have been issued. So there's no mention of then what happened to this 8.5 million shillings as those classrooms did not materialize. So we'll continue to keep them honest right here on KTN News on 47 days of accountability. We are glad that you're watching KTN News tonight, and stay with us. We still have a lot in store for you, including our continued focus on that health crisis. We have an interview with a former CEO of the Kenya Medical Association. She's standing by for us, Elizabeth Wala. But we're also asking you on our big Q, if you were in the same room with the striking doctors, what would you ask them? What would you like to know from them? Tweet us at KTN News, at Sofia Wanuna, at KTN Kenya. We will read some of those views. Stay with us right here on KTN News. We'll be right back. So our coverage of the doctors, or other health workers strike, as nurses are also involved, has entered day 2. The talks continue today, not bearing much fruit. With me in studio is a medical doctor. She's also former CEO of the Kenya Medical Association. Her name is Elizabeth Wala. Thank you so much for being with us. As this strike continues, there are those who are looking at it from a moral point of view and ethical, in as far as how do doctors and nurses reconcile with themselves? Lives are being lost, people are dying. On your side, you're seeking a better pay, a better package in as far as what you take home.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think it's a very valid point that can be seen as almost unethical. But if you look at the other side of the healthcare workers, the conditions in which they operate in, the remuneration that they get, and then the discussions that have been going on ever since 2013, so to speak, at least for the doctors. It's been a long time coming, and I think they have pursued all avenues possible and reached this end where they have had to go the industrial way.
Yeah. Is it not possible to have a middle ground where perhaps emergencies can still be taken care of, and you still have a way in which to ventilate and, you know, have your issues, whatever they are, aired out, and perhaps even still go on strike, but not get everybody to suffer, especially emergency cases?
From my understanding, there are counties that already have that in place. Some counties have worked out with private hospitals where emergency care is still being offered. So the critical care patients are being taken care of for the most part.
Yeah. And yet, on the other hand, there are doctors that are intimidating those who are choosing to work. So you see on one side, there are those that are working, but there are those who do not want to see any of the doctors work, even taking care of the emergencies.
I think that will happen in any large group. For the most part, I think we'd say that over 90% of the doctors are on the strike, and for those of us who are also out of civil service, we do support the strike because it is high time that these issues are addressed once and for all. Yeah.
So how then do you reconcile this? You said this is an issue that pretty much has to then be, because on one hand you're seeking what you deserve, which has been delayed according to what you're saying, but on the other hand there's a mother, a sister, a brother watching and saying, how do you seek more pay and my loved one is suffering?
What I'd like the public to know is that doctors are also human beings. They're also people subjected to the bills that we have to pay. They're subjected to, you know, training needs and all that. So even I, as a doctor, I do have a family. I am paying rent, I'm paying school fees. And when these needs are also not being met, it will be very hard for me to also offer the topmost quality of care that I can when I know my children are not going to school, that I don't have food on the plate, or I cannot meet this and that bill. So it's striking a balance between the expectations of the public and also the needs of the healthcare workers at this point here.
And yet we've been seeing so many strikes, not only now this national one, in the counties, so many of those going on. What do you think will bring that to a stop? And do you also think that devolving healthcare was a mistake?
I wouldn't say devolution was a mistake. What I'd say is that the manner in which it was done was in a hurry, especially the human resource bit. And for us, we are pushing for a central body that's going to manage human resource issues in the health sector. If you look at the health sector strikes, all of them center around human resources. So whether it's about promotions, it's about pay, it's about people going back for training. So all these are on human resource. And there are very many lovely documents that have been prepared that are lying, at the Ministry of Health, at the county government levels, at the Salary Review Commission level, at the Public Service Commission level. It's all about having that goodwill to implement the things that have been agreed upon.
Yeah. Is it correct that the lowest medical officer gets 150,000 in as far as the private sector is concerned, and public 100,000?
For the medical officer intern, because we finish our 6 years of training and then we go for 1 year mandatory internship, the basic salary right now is 38,000 shillings. And then you add allowances, and allowances vary with counties. Like house allowance would vary. In one county they pay 20,000, in another one they'll pay less. So you can imagine that you're starting off on that kind of salary. It is, in 2016, it's almost impossible to make a living out of it, yes.
Because there are those who argue the discrepancy is minimal between the two, from public and private sector, and to look that there's also training opportunities for those in public healthcare. Then we're also seeing more and more doctors starting their own private practices as much as they're still in public, because there is extra time. What do you say to those who are saying the system itself is broken, so the demands are unwarranted?
I wouldn't say that doctors have extra time. I would say that with the current circumstances in the public health sector, where you're barely making out a living, then you'd find that people during their off times, in fact, during their off times, then they'll find extra income doing public service, which is allowed under the law, private service, so to speak. But then we have also seen, at least from the Medical Association, that our doctors are burning out. They're burning out simply because they're not resting. Okay. So today, 8 to 5, they're in this government hospital. At night, they're eking out, a locum at a private hospital. The next day, they're back. So even the quality of care that they're giving is very limited. But if I were a public service, or rather a doctor practicing in the public service, and I was remunerated well enough, I'd have time to be settled and offer the kind of care that I do need to care. And then during my free time, I'm at home with my kids, or I'm doing my other hobbies. So I don't need to, constantly, if you look at the traffic jams caused in Nairobi, I wouldn't be surprised that most of them are being caused by doctors running from one facility to another because they're trying to make ends meet.
Yeah. As we bring this to a close, many watching tonight, especially those who will be taking their loved ones to public hospitals, there are those who are there unattended, perhaps watching this and thinking to themselves, what will be the resolution at the end of this? What do you think will be that thing that will make the doctors be able to go back to work, or at least the government as well to be able to budge to your needs?
I think it is for the government to honor the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement that was signed in 2013, that needs to be backdated all the way, because it is a legal document. And I think we've been taken around in circles by the ministries, various ministries, and everyone shifting blame from one institution to another. So if these things were agreed upon in 2013, I don't see why there's now a turnaround where people are not willing to implement what they signed for.
All right. Thank you very much, Elizabeth Wala. Pleasure talking to you, former CEO of the Kenya Medical Association, as well as a medical doctor. You are watching KTN Prime here on KTN News. Thank you for staying with us. A lot of your feedback that has come through. I'm sure my director can allow me at least a minute or so to sample some of your views tonight. So Abu, you're saying, why do they continue suffering with the poor pay and deplorable working conditions instead of going abroad? That is the question you would ask, because on our BQ we're asking, what would you ask if you're in the same room with striking doctors? The hustler, you say actually that what the hell you say is a collective bargaining agreement, and is it worth a life is what you're asking. Director, you say I would ask them how they can be so patient for 3 years before going on strike. So mixed views. There are those who are in support, those who are not. Stay with us here on KTN News. We'll be back with more. evening and welcome back to KTN Prime. Let's talk business. The PTA Reinsurance Company, otherwise known as ZEP Re, has announced the appointment of Mrs. Hope Murera as the new managing director with effect from January the 1st, 2017. Mrs. Murera will replace Mr. Rajni Vadia, who has been at the helm of the company since 2008. The new head has the task of bringing the African regional reinsurer into a new age where an Africa-wide market for businesses fast becoming reality.
ZEPRI considers itself lucky to have had a chief executive of his stature and with such enviable attributes. Indeed, these qualities have manifested themselves in the growth of the company during the last 13 years that he was working at ZEPRI, as ably pointed out by the Secretary General.
Mobile phone service provider Safaricom's pension scheme is looking to set up a 4.3 billion shillings real estate development dubbed Crystal Rivers to tap the ballooning demand in the real estate sector. With rising demand for housing in the country now standing at 200,000 units per year, the Safaricom pension scheme is banking on the project, which is to be situated along Mombasa Road, to cash in on the housing shortage. The scheme is investing in real estate as a long-term source of returns that will benefit the members when they finally retire from active employment. Speaking during a media briefing, Safaricom Staff Pension Scheme Board of Trustees Chairman Joseph Ogutu said that Crystal Rivers Mall is expected to be ready for occupation and open for business in mid-2017.
They are putting up, they are going there, the supermarket will be there, and that's the main one. And we have Java, who have already confirmed they are going to have a coffee house there. The other one is it called Urban Coffee? So they've also confirmed. There are negotiations going on with Mata Hospital to put up a facility there. So we've provided for a clinic at the mall. So you can see that it will be a mall that encompasses and includes everything that a family would require.
Continuity East Africa, a subsidiary of Internet Solutions Kenya, has today launched operations in ICT resilience, enterprise risk management, and business continuity management advisory services targeting public and private businesses in East Africa. Continuity East Africa will offer the same services offered by the mother company, Continuity SA, which has for the past 27 years led the business continuity industry in Africa. In response to varied market dynamics, the portfolio of services will gradually evolve to keep a pace with changing business requirements while taking advantage of technology advances for relevance. Continuity East Africa will help businesses establish processes beyond the conventional disaster recovery plans by determining vulnerable areas and potential losses in the event of a disaster. ICT Cabinet Secretary lauded the entry into the market, saying increased business resilience would improve the doing business environment for the country.
People actually understand that it's so much more than just technology.
This significantly increases the risk of losing information from unprecedented disaster and hence dictates our strategic move to ensure all our systems are indeed backed up and available whenever they are needed.
A tech startup is encouraging Alexandria residents in Egypt to recycle their waste by installing machines that will give them free mobile minutes and supermarket coupons in return for their rubbish. This modern tip of encouraging recycling has created business opportunities along the way. KTN's Joy Doreen Bira tells us more.
GreenTech, a company specializing in waste management in Egypt, has launched an initiative to promote recycling in Egypt's coastal city of Alexandria. The project aims to reduce the governorate's burden of dealing with waste and raise public awareness about environmentally friendly lifestyles. The purpose of the GreenTech's collection center is to encourage people to rethink the way in which they deal with waste.
We have set up this collection center, which is a way to directly engage with the public, who can now bring their empty bottles of juice or shampoo or cans or whatever. We encourage them by giving them a receipt that they can cash for prizes when they collect enough points. The prices vary from phone credit to children's books.
The prizes also include pots and seeds as one way to teach people how to grow the seeds into plants. A machine inside the collection point compresses the bottles to prepare them for recycling.
The lid goes there and the bottle goes there. This machine compresses the bottles to shrink them into smallest size possible, and then they are collected and sent to be recycled.
Increasing numbers of people are already making the most of turning their trash into something meaningful, and business opportunities are arising.
Every day after drinking a can or water bottle, instead of throwing it on the streets, I throw it in here because they take it and recycle it.
This compression process reduces the cost of transportation because instead of one truck carrying 100 kilograms, it can now carry up to 1 ton. It also reduces the pressure on using foreign currency to import raw materials that Egypt does not produce. GreenTech hopes to expand across the country by building more collection points.
It will teach people how to sort out their waste. The plastic, the metal, for example, from other materials. It's a new culture that I hope we all learn from, and I hope we change our habits in this area in particular.
The company, in cooperation with the European Union, will soon begin to set up collection points in schools and universities in Alexandria to encourage younger people to adopt eco-friendly habits, but also increase business opportunities for the younger generation. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN News.
In sports news tonight, National Super League outfit Kariobangi Sharks are seeking to finish the season with a win as they seek promotion into the Kenya Premier League next season. Sharks, who play Nzoia in their final league game, feel a win against NSL champions will see them achieve their target of promotion.
Kariobangi Sharks' efforts of getting promotion into the Kenya Premier League in 2017 seem likely, with the Thika Road-based club a win away into the top-tier league. Sharks began the season on a low note but slowly picked themselves up, and now they lie second on the log with 80 points, 12 points adrift log leaders Nzoia Sugar.
Initially hatukuanza poa, ukiangalia first leg record yetu ilikuwa mixed sana, tulikuwa tuna draw yani hatukuwa consistent na
tulianza on a low note. But ile time tulianza kushinda, nadhani kila mtu gain confidence.
With the team boasting the experience of former Premier League players such as Ibrahim Kitawi and Patila Omoto, the team feels competition in the Super League is much higher.
Ni step ya kufika hapo Premier League, step moja. So lazima kila mtu ajitume ndio apige hiyo step.
Teams mob azitambui ati sijui kuna timu kubwa ama timu ndogo. The same team unapatana nayo imefunga timu kubwa, next game inafungwa na timu ndogo.
Sharks dispel the perception that they have been getting favors in the league.
Games zetu ni ngumu sana. Tungekuwa tuna get favors, nadhani tungekuwa number 1. Kutoka day 1 tungekuwa number 1. Lakini games zetu zimekuwa ngumu, tuna lose, tuna draw. But hakuna favor tunapata.
The Thika Road-based club will be seeking to continue with the unbeaten run in the second leg of the league when they face league winners Nzoia in their final game.
By the way, walitufunga home. Lakini mimi nasema itakuwa very different this time. Kama watakamna ile idea ama mind yenye walitufunga first leg, then watakuwa surprised.
A win for the Sharks will see them in KPL in 2017. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
After going 1-0 in a day 2 of soccer action of the East Africa Inter-Parliamentary Games against Uganda, Kenya today redeemed herself at today's volleyball match, securing 2-0 against Uganda. Kenya began on a high in the match that lasted 53 minutes with team captain Honorable Arthur Odera, the MP for Teso North, and Isaac Sang combining to lead Kenya to a 25-14 win in the first set. The second set was a seesaw affair before the second technical timeout, but Cosmas Kirui played a major role that saw Kenya bag a 25-7 win. Kenya will tomorrow play at Tanzania in a football match at 4 p.m. Olympic marathon gold medalist Jemima Sumgong and Eliud Kipchoge are among the athletes that have been nominated for this year's Athletics Kenya Athlete of the Year Awards. Last year's winner Vivian Cheruiyot and Julius Yego are among the athletes that are vying for the top award. The Golden Gala will be held on Wednesday, 7th December here in Nairobi. Let's now look at the nominees. Right, before we wrap up tonight here on KTN Prime, remember we'd asked you if you were in a room with a doctor, one of the striking doctors or health workers if you like, what would you ask them? Let me just read some of what you're saying tonight. Antoinette Owiti, you say, to pressurize the Walanyama government to taste the dog's nyama and feel its taste, the Walanyama government doesn't respect life. Victoria Odipo, you say, working conditions and equipment have been part of their reason to strike ever since. Mega Sparks, you say, stand firm, no sympathy, let it be done and have quality care at the end of it all. And one last one, Caroline Gishero, whilst MCS get 400K and doctors earn 40K and the doctors have more responsibilities, lest we forget is what you're saying. Indeed, we thank you all for taking the time to tweet in or send in your messages. But that's all we had time for tonight. On behalf of the team that made this bulletin possible, it was great being here with you. My name is Sofia Wanuna, wishing you a lovely night.